Ocala's Got Talent.
Hey Ocala, this is Kelly Hart, Executive Editor of Ocala Magazine. Did you know last year Ocala Magazine won more awards in excellence than any other publication in Florida? And this year, Ocala Magazine was named Best Consumer Magazine in the state. Now you can join me every Friday at 10 a.m. on Ocala Magazine Radio, where we bring the pages of Ocala Magazine to life, right here on The Source. Ocala Magazine thanks you for making us number one. And remember, there is only one Ocala Magazine.
WWWOCA, WWWOCA.
When it really counts, depend on The Source for the latest weather updates, keeping you ahead of the storm. 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, The Source.
Hi, I'm Fran Darkington. When I need news, I pass the rest and tune to The Source, WOCA.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. One of the things that happens in life that we never want to have happen is divorce. You hear about it all the time. Hollywood sort of makes it look like it's a no big deal thing, but it is a big deal. And if you've ever gone through a divorce, it is a big deal. It's a hard thing to go through, and it's even harder if you have children. And so we constantly have laws that are changing in this state as well as the other states to change the way divorces are held. We have people who want everything to be equal, and other people who say no, it should be based on the gender. No, it should be based on the earning power of whichever spouse has the most money. There's a bill on the governor's desk, I believe, right now. There was a story this morning about that bill. It says, I'm going to read from the story, the battle over a new divorce law spilled into the governor's office this week. The governor's contemplating whether to sign Senate Bill 668. It is described, depending on who you're asking, as either very anti-family, that according to, who said that? Barbara Devane from the National Organization for Women. You have other people saying this is mostly a way for lawyers to make money, and so we're going to find out. Yesterday I had a conversation with our next guest, one of our two next guests, and I didn't even realize she was going to be a guest. I thought she was a publicist, because typically when we have a guest, it's a publicist who calls and makes a pitch on behalf of the guest. Molly K. Olson is on the phone. She's the president of Leading Women for Shared Parenting, and I had my own personal story that I shared with her. And Alan Frisher is on. I don't have any information on Alan, so we're going to get to meet Alan together. We're talking about Florida Senate Bill 668, alimony and child sharing reform. Good morning, Molly. Good to hear from you again.
Good morning, Larry. Thank you so much for having both Alan and I here today. I am the co-founder and president of Leading Women for Shared Parenting, an organization that is a national and international organization, and I'm so glad Alan can join us as well. He can tell you about his specific interest in Florida. Okay. Alan,
is your last name Frisher? Do I have that right?
Frisher is correct. Yes, you do.
And where are you? Where are you, Alan? Where are you calling from?
I'm in Melbourne, Florida. I'm actually the president of Family Law Reform, and we are the advocacy group helping to reform the current alimony laws in the state of Florida.
So you want this bill to be signed, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And Molly, are you on the same page with him on that?
Yes, we absolutely are supportive of the provisions. We are an organization that primarily is focused on the shared parenting piece of the legislation.
I see. Okay. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to just share my little story. I'll try to make it real brief. I was divorced 1990. That's a long. You okay? That was a long time ago, right? But it was my son was 4, and basically I was told I'm going to see my son from Friday night at 6 p.m. till Sunday night at 6 p.m. every 2 weeks, and it broke my heart. I wasn't a bad dad. His mom wasn't a bad mom. But for some reason, the lawyers didn't want to agree that you could split time in half. And long story short, I figured out a way to make time split in half. I redefined a day. It didn't start at midnight. It started at 9 a.m. and ended at 9 a.m. the next day. I redefined a weekend. It wasn't 2 days. It was 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We went with the agreement of every other weekend based on that definition. We went on the agreement of every other day and stuck to it. My son is now going on 30, and he's had a great relationship with both myself and his mother. And I believe, although we hear horror stories about men and the fathers, I believe men, for the most part, are like myself, just a good person wanting to be a good dad. You know, even maybe we weren't good husbands, but we want to be good fathers. And with that said, that was the conversation I basically had with you, Molly, yesterday.
Yes, and parenting brings out the best in men, for absolutely sure. And just because people divorce their spouse does not mean they divorce their children. And Larry, you were ahead of your time back in the 90s when you requested what is now referred to as a 2552 schedule, which when people go into court and requesting shared parenting, there's, a list of 10 or 12 or more different kinds of schedules that you can have and still arrive at as close to 50% as possible. Many different options, but that 2552 that you designed, again, way ahead of your time years ago, is something that allows frequent contact with each parent, so there's never too many days that goes by so the child does not see one or the other parent.
Right. And I think it's also important to say that we said, my wife and I said to each other, look, this is what it's going to say on paper, but look, we're not going to be ironclad about this. If it's Christmas and Christmas has to happen on this, we're not going to be so hard-nosed that we're going to make anybody cry. I mean, we had love was the bottom motivating force in everything.
Yeah, Larry, that's one of the things that we say as supporters of shared parenting, as supporters of equal shared parenting as a starting place. We frequently say and completely believe that once that parental equality is known, is respected, is shared, that both parents will have greater flexibility. The more the extreme parenting schedules are determined, like every other weekend, which is 4 days a month, and the other parent gets 26 days a month,
right.
The more disparity there is in the schedule, the less flexibility either parent is going to make. And that flexibility is important for the ongoing changing needs and circumstances of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan, tell us your story.
Well, I want to, back up a little bit, because this bill was first introduced as an alimony reform bill. And it's been going on actually for the past 6 years. We finally were able to negotiate appropriate alimony reform numbers with a formula and eliminating permanent alimony, which is something we still have here in the state of Florida, with the family section of the Florida Bar. Senator Lee, who's the Senate Appropriations Chairperson, wanted shared parenting included in this bill, and in so doing, originally he made the shared parenting a presumption, and the family section had a huge problem with the presumption. He backed off of that wording, ultimately, and made it a premise. And there's a huge difference between a premise and a presumption for shared parenting. A presumption is more of an absolute rule. It's a truth that's very hard to rebut in law, in legal terms. Whereas a premise is more of a starting point. It's something that allows the judges to look at, then have 20 different factors to go by the best interest of the child, and then determine if a 50-50 or approximately equal shared parenting is appropriate. And that's where we stand right now with the bill. So we have alimony reform, which does many incredible things for people paying alimony saddled with large amounts that they can't afford to pay. It allows people to retire without necessarily having to pay alimony. I mean, certainly they have to go back to court and motion the court when they retire to stop paying alimony, or at least reduce the alimony. It'll remove permanent alimony entirely, so now the judges would order alimony between 25% and 75% the length of the marriage, and will include a formula based upon the differences of incomes between both parents. So we have excellent legislation that ultimately helps children, helps families, and really should be signed by Governor Scott.
We don't have anybody arguing the other side. So the lady in the news, Barbara Devane, if she were on, she would be the one arguing the other side. Can either of you articulate what her argument might be?
Well, one thing that I find interesting about the National Organization for Women is now today in the year 2016, when our country is all about respecting diversity and respecting and trying to get equality in everything that we do in all of our policies, that now the National Organization of Women is still fighting against that premise of equality in family court. In the early 1970s,
it is ironic, isn't it? Yeah.
when the National Organization of Women was fighting in Congress in Washington, D.C. for the child support legislation, the National Organization of Women actually testified to Congress in the 70s that custody of children to the mother was a curse. That's what they testified then. But now, and also former presidents, such as Karen DeCrow of the National Organization of Women, have clearly been on the record to say that she, as a former president of now, and she's now deceased, but she supports shared parenting. She thinks the only way to get equality for women in the workplace is to get equality for men in the home. So what this Barbara is saying as a representative of now in Florida is contrary to what other equity feminists believe.
Yeah, and
what's interesting also is that we've had women testify in front of the legislature in Florida saying the NOW organization really needs to define the word independence. Is it one word, independence, or two words, independence?
I got you. The one thing I wanted to mention here is, assuming we're talking about couples who have children who are still young, the child is the first person you should be thinking about. It's not the equality with the men and the women. It's the children. That should be the most important thing, I think. Mm-hmm. And that sounds like the position you take, Molly, from what we talked about yesterday.
Yeah, all of the research shows that having both parents in their lives is what's best for children. All of the research, the model that's been used for the last 40 years in family court to remove one parent, usually the father, and just give them every other weekend, that model has created unwarranted court-forced fatherlessness. And all of the statistics are clear. Fatherlessness is extremely harmful to children. And fatherlessness doesn't just mean that the dad is gone, nowhere to be seen, dropped off the face of the earth. It also means that the time is so restricted that dad can't even have a meaningful influence on the child's life, which harms the child for the long run.
And that's exactly what happened actually in my personal situation also. When I was ordered to see my children Wednesdays and every other weekend, to this day, I still don't have a relationship with my 22-year-old daughter. We don't speak because of the adversarial nature and the time away. I really had very little, if any, influence over her life growing up.
That's such a shame.
And I think, too, that money is the underlying reason for a lot of the women that are getting divorced. They will use the children as leverage and say, if you don't give me money, you're only going to see your son or your daughter every other weekend from 6 o'clock Friday till 6 o'clock Sunday. And it's about the money for a lot of the women. They really don't want to have the responsibility of the children, but they want that money.
Robin, that is so true, and I don't know why more people don't see that. I don't know why the courts don't see that as legalized extortion.
Exactly.
Well, I think the courts do see this. Our problem and our enemy, if you will, are not necessarily the women who are really fighting for what they feel they are entitled to, but it really are it's the leaders of the family section of the Florida bar in this instance, because ultimately when you have less fighting, less litigation, it means less money in their pockets. It means less adversarial situations, less going back to court, less time going back to court, and parents actually working things out and settling for what's best for children. The leaders of the family section of the Florida bar do not want that.
Governor Scott has, I think...
Ellen is so right, because I've been fighting this battle across the country for 16 years, trying to get a rebuttable presumption of parental equality in family court as a starting place. And the opponents are not it's not, when you go to legislator, it's not moms versus dads. It's the parents versus the Bar Association and the family law attorneys and all of their other family law attorney organizations. So it's politics over people, and it is the lawyers over the parents.
That is
against
crazy.
The parents.
You're probably dead on with that, too. That just rings true to me. We need to take a little break. When we come back, I want to make sure we get the information out, because ultimately the only thing we can really do, we can talk about it all day long, but if we don't write letters, because Governor Scott, I think, has 1 week left before he has to make a decision one way or the other. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of this. I want to specifically ask you guys what will change if he signs it and what won't change if he doesn't. We'll take a break and be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For Wednesday, times of clouds and sunshine with a shower and thunderstorm around during the afternoon and evening hours. The high today 81 at the coast, 86 inland. And later Wednesday night, mostly cloudy, low 64 inland, 69 at the coast. For Thursday, a blend of sun and clouds with an afternoon or evening shower or thunderstorm. High 79 at the coast, up to 84 inland. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Want to learn more about your furnace or air conditioner? Tune in this Saturday for free tips and expert advice on how to get the most out of your heating and air conditioning system. Or get a free AC rejuvenation by being the first person to go to cleanmyac.com. That's cleanmyac.com. Saturday, free tips and expert advice on how to get the most out of your heating and air conditioning system. Or get a free AC rejuvenation by being the first person to go to cleanmyac.com. That's cleanmyac.com.
That was the sound of a tree falling. It could be your tree. You're going to have it trimmed, but never got around to calling Pride Tree Service. It could have fallen in a field, and now all you have to do is call Pride Tree Service, and they'll have it quickly out of the way for a great price. But don't wait until the tree falls. It may not fall in the field. It may hit your car, your house, or worse. So call Pride Tree Service today and avoid all those headaches before they happen. Pride Tree Service, 840-0750. That's 840-0750.
Hey, Matt, I know Sunrise Automotive does auto stuff, but I need some tires for my truck. Can you recommend someone?
Yes, I can. We do that.
No, I mean, I need them installed and balanced and all that.
Yep, we do that.
Well, my son needed his windows tinted.
Yep, we do that.
I need my seat replaced.
Yep, we do that too.
I need a new roof line, and a new spoiler, and a new trunk.
Yep, we can even do that too.
Okay, I get it. I suppose you can also do a radio show too.
Well, as a matter of fact, join me, Matt Gibbs from Sunrise Automotive, every Tuesday at 10 for auto repair with personal care right here on The Source.
Stay informed on everything going on in the Villages with the Village Spectator newspaper. The Village Spectator is exclusively devoted to the Villages with news, commentary, and more. And yes, they have Tom's Picks, a free referral for people who are looking for a company to do work for them. Tom's Picks will refer the company that fits your needs, and all we ask is that you tell them where you heard about them. Call Tom's Picks at 804-1223 and pick up your copy of the Village Spectator today.
Now read Ocala Downtown newspaper online.
All right, 8 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Molly K. Olson and Alan Frisher are on the phone. We're talking about a bill that's on the governor's desk that he will or will not sign in the next 7 days or so. It is Florida Senate Bill 668, and it is about alimony and child time sharing that might be changed by the signing of this bill. Could one of you articulate for maybe just the person just tuning in or the person who's never heard about this, what will change?
Well, if you want, Molly, I'll take this. We have really 10 things that are going to be changing with this litigation if it's signed. First of all, it'll reduce litigation. It'll simplify divorces, and it'll maintain consistency and predictability within the courts for alimony. It'll eliminate permanent alimony. It'll create award guidelines based on a formula, which is something we do not have right now. Right now, judges, at their own discretion, come up with amounts that are not consistent, that are unfathomable to actually pay for the payer for most of the time. It'll create guidelines based on the length of the marriage, and it'll make for a duration between 25% and 75% the length of the marriage. And this is all on the alimony side. It'll allow people to retire without having to necessarily pay alimony for the rest of their lives. Insofar as the child custody and alimony, the child custody awards, it will allow judges to make determinations, but will have to write specifically if they go out of the guidelines based upon a number of factors and what is the best interests of the children. It'll start with a premise of approximately equal time sharing. When you go into court as parents, you want to be able to know that you will have approximately equal time with your children. Now, of course, if there's abuse, if there's distance involved, those are just two of the many factors that a judge will be able to look at, because now it would be a premise.
Right.
And those are just, a few of the things that this new legislation will address.
So it sounds like
it's really quite incredible.
As far as the child part of this, it sounds like it starts out fair, and then you weigh other parts of this, like if there's abuse, like if there's a distance involved, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What is the benefit of this bill to have both issues on the same bill? Couldn't each issue have their own bill?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, that was recommended initially. The problem is Senator Lee knew that it would be easier and I guess most beneficial to tack on the child sharing onto the alimony bill, because the alimony bill was passing through the House and the Senate. So it's a political move to make certain that we get both this session.
Let's make sure we give information so people can either write to the governor. Do you think that will help if we write to the governor?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have, I guess, a 5-to-1 ratio right now with people supporting the bill as opposed to opposing it. But he does read the comments. It does get to him. It goes to his staff. I met with his staff, and they are counting the amount of support as opposed to the opposition. So yes, please, everybody needs to write, to call, to contact Governor Scott's office.
And Molly, have you been able to have a one-on-one with Governor Scott to present your side?
I haven't as a national advocate, but Alan has been in the office of the governor. He can talk about that. And before we run out of time, I do want to make sure, too, we tell everybody listening that can we say the email on the air?
Yeah, absolutely.
That they contact the governor with?
Yes.
It's rick.scott@eog.myflorida.com.
Okay, rick.scott. Let's say it again.
rick.scott@eog.myflorida.com.
Okay, got it.
.gov. It might be .gov, not .com, but it might be .gov, I think.
Okay, all right, I'll look it up real quickly. But anyway, so the opposite of Barbara Devane's statement actually is in the news story, a statement from you, Alan. So at least I was thinking that our news people didn't give both sides, but I guess they did their homework and got your side of it too. The story seemed to be slanted the other way. Go ahead.
There's a lot of controversy with this, and certainly our governor doesn't want controversy, but this is an issue that will always be controversial. If one of the media staff mentioned that he might be looking into a study, for making this happen and waiting on this bill. But a study is not really going to do anything other than drag this same situation out. And then who do you present to do the study? Florida bar people, advocates, opponents. We've gone through a lot of the study. We've gone through a lot of the numbers. The family section has approved the alimony portion of this. We've gone through this for years now. This is my 8th year doing this. It's time to make a change. It's like an insidious cancer. You don't keep on studying the cancer while it's killing people. You cut it out. You effectively do something.
Yeah, but
that's what we're doing.
And the studies are fine, but the problem I have with studies, if you don't mind me using a biblical reference, is this: that when if you had a study that showed that all men are evil, and therefore they should never ever get child their custody. Mm-hmm. Let's say that's what the study revealed, right? In the Bible, there's this story about before the flood.
Yeah.
Where God says, I'm going to kill everybody, but there's one guy I'm going to save, Mm-hmm. Well, that's the judge should put himself in that position. The judge should say, look, maybe the study shows this is the case, but this guy sitting before me is a good guy. The judge should be ultimately the one who says, these children are going to be fine with this man. These children are going to be fine with this mother, this father. Mm-hmm. That's the person who we have hired and paid well, by the way, is the judge to sit there and say, yeah, these children will be fine with both parents. He's the one who should be saying whether or not they're going to do well with it. It shouldn't be anybody else. They shouldn't be anything other than people who are making common sense decisions.
Well, and the fathers should be entering court as innocent until proven guilty, versus right now with no premise for parental equality. Dads walk in guilty unless proven innocent, which they rarely are.
Exactly.
By the way, myflorida.com is probably, I mean, they both work. They both take you to the same place. So, the email, if you want to send it to the governor, rick.scott@eog.myflorida.gov or .com. Either one would work. It looks like. Thank you for what you're doing. I think you're doing something that needed to be done 30 years ago. Thank you for being on the air with us today, too.
Thank you for having us, Larry. Greatly appreciate it.
All right, we'll take a break.
Thanks, Molly. Appreciate it.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. In the fight for the White House, a first for Bernie Sanders.
Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley is feeling the burn, making it Bernie Sanders' first endorsement from a Senate colleague. Merkley wrote a New York Times op-ed explaining his support.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers.
Today, the New York State Immigrant Action Fund will endorse Hillary Clinton. Clinton leads Sanders in the polls ahead of next week's New York primary. On the Republican side, Donald Trump is coming off 3 big rallies in upstate New York and is now turning his attention to Pennsylvania. Ted Cruz will hold a rally today in Erie, Pennsylvania. Governor John Kasich is campaigning in Maryland.
And attorneys for